This video contains major spoilers for Game of Thrones Season 8 and for the television series Hannibal. Be warned. I used to be a Game of Thrones fan. I'm not sure how hot the discourse is over Game of Thrones anymore. I haven't been in fandom spaces for a while, and I honestly don't plan on returning. But there's no question that the final season received a lot of backlash, to say the least. It's hard to pinpoint the moment that started the downfall of Game of Thrones. Maybe it was when David and Dan ran out of books to adapt, I'm not sure. And I don't want to do a rewatch to find out, because, and I know a lot of people have experienced the same feeling, knowing how it ends really just spoils the rest of the show for me. There are a lot of things you can complain about regarding Season 8. And there are a lot of things you can compliment as well, but that's not what this video is about. I want to talk about what, in my opinion, is the most egregious error the show made: Daenerys Targaryen, specifically her corruption arc. My anger regarding how her character was handled in Season 8 was immense. Her descent into madness felt rushed and forced, explained away mainly by genetics.
They say every time a Targaryen is born, the gods toss a coin, and the world holds its breath.
Not much for riddles where I'm from.
I thought, oh, they're trying to do a corruption arc here, but they're not doing it right at all. They're not hitting any of the beats. But I never really fact-checked this, so to speak. It was mainly just my anger talking, so when I went to actually study the structure of traditional corruption arcs, I was surprised to find that Dany's arc actually hits most of the beats that one would expect. I'll run through an abbreviated version here. There is often quite a bit more to a corruption arc, but I've picked out the more important points as they apply to Season 8. 1. Character understands the thematic truth. At the beginning of Season 8, Dany understands that power corrupts. In taking back Westeros, her goal is to not only gain her birthright, but to also break the wheel of noble families vying for power and crushing those below them. Dany's goal was always to protect and free the innocent.
Dov'è Gavis? Jemut Clive Sori. Keso Tubi. Jemut Tivri Depan. Hendo Jagun Charles Lui Vali Miri. Hendo Jagun Costas. Undai Rivali Sirio Trikilsa. Jemut Kiven Lui Depan. Unai City Vili Vilat. Undai Rivalotti.
While she did use extreme violence against those that opposed her, she had a set of values to justify her actions. The powerful corrupt died so that she could free the suffering innocent. Ultimately, she believes she can be a leader without being a tyrant.
We will not attack King's Landing. I am not here to be Queen of the Ashes.
2. Character is tempted by the lie. When Dany comes to Winterfell, she finds that her reception is icy, and many of the Northerners support Jon Snow as their one true king. Dany then learns that Jon Snow was born Aegon Targaryen and has a stronger claim to the Iron Throne than her own. In addition, Dany undergoes multiple traumatic events, including the death of Jorah Mormont, the loss of many of her people in the Battle of Winterfell, the death of her dragon Rhaegal, rejection of her romantic advances by Jon Snow, betrayal by her advisor Varys, and the execution of Missandei. All of these events push her towards madness, and Dany is often tempted to rule through fear instead of mercy.
Let it be fear.
3. Character is torn between the truth and the lie. Dany still believes that she is right. However, she begins to abandon her earlier principles of destroying the corrupt and saving the innocent, and instead entertains the idea of mass casualties to get the thing she wants, the Iron Throne, choosing to blame those casualties on Cersei for not surrendering.
They're hostages.
They are. In a tyrant's grip, whose fault is that? Mine?
What does it matter whose fault it is? Thousands of children will die if the city burns. Cersei's followers will abandon her if they know the war is lost. Give them that chance. If the city surrenders, they will ring the bells and raise the gates. Please, if you hear them ringing the bells, call off the attack.
4. Character fully embraces the lie. Moral failure. Dany succumbs to madness and moral corruption during the last war, choosing to ignore Cersei's call for surrender and burning down King's Landing instead, killing countless innocents in the process. She takes King's Landing by force and in her speech to her armies declares her intent to rule the whole world, ultimately becoming the kind of tyrant she sought to depose.
In veli pasma tetos taor. In vrapa tolvio vio non tiraderat. Tolvrio pregelat. Grevi in noma pregelat.
5. Aftermath. I think we all remember where this one goes. As you can see, this looks pretty solid on paper, but why did it leave so many people unsatisfied or even angry? I think it has to do with agency. Agency is a character's ability to make decisions that affect the direction of the story. In this second piece about temptation, Dany is tempted by the lie because of things that were done to her, not because of decisions she herself made. The deaths of her people and those closest to her were not caused by Dany herself. Jon's rejection of Dany's romantic interest was not because of something Dany did, but because of, incest. Her loss of power was not because of anything she did, but because Jon happened to be born with a stronger claim to the throne. The betrayal of Varys was not because of something she did, but because Varys believed her to be too unstable because of her genetics. In order for her ultimate downfall to be satisfying, she has to make decisions that lead to her moral corruption. She has to have agency in her own decline. Otherwise, she experienced trauma, not corruption. In searching for a piece of media to compare Dany's arc to, I didn't want to choose just any story of corruption. Power Corrupts is a relatively easy story to come by, but it's much harder to find a story where a character's corruption arc isn't set in motion by their own actions, mainly because it's extremely difficult to do so convincingly and satisfyingly. Then, I watched Hannibal. Hannibal was created by Brian Fuller and aired 3 seasons on NBC from 2013 to 2015 before its cancellation. It's a truly amazing show, and it's currently on Netflix. I highly recommend you check it out, even if you've already seen it. Get those ratings up, and maybe Netflix will renew it for a 4th season. Maybe. Anyway, Hannibal explores the relationship between Will Graham, an FBI profiler with the ability to empathize with anyone, even killers, and Hannibal Lecter, a renowned psychiatrist and secret serial killer / cannibal. Hannibal is fascinated with Will Graham and throughout the series attempts to manipulate him into seeing the beauty in death and ultimately becoming a killer like himself. These stories are obviously much different on the surface, but they do have some striking similarities that make them interesting to compare. In Hannibal, the catalyst for Will's corruption is portrayed as his own innate darkness versus outside influence from Hannibal Lecter. Likewise, for Daenerys, her descent into moral corruption is a balance between her genetic predisposition towards madness and the outside influence of trauma and betrayal. For both of these characters, their fall is characterized by something in them or something that happened to them, not by their own agency within the story. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's take a look at Will Graham's corruption arc. This is, admittedly, a bit harder seeing as his arc spans 3 seasons and many, many more hours, and it's pretty much left at its climax, but I will attempt to apply the previous format regardless. 1. Character understands the thematic truth. Before Will goes back into the field and meets Hannibal, he recognizes that his ability to empathize with killers doesn't make him evil. The show goes out of its way to illustrate this. He is an outcast and often has trouble socializing with other people, but he cares a lot, especially about his pack of adopted strays. 2. Character is tempted by the lie. Will is traumatized after he kills Garrett Jacob Hobbs to save Abigail Hobbs's life. When Will is crouched over Abigail's dying body, Hobbs asks him, Will doesn't understand this, the beauty in death or the enjoyment of killing, that is, until Hannibal plants the suggestion in his head that maybe he does.
Did you really feel so bad because killing him felt so good?
I liked killing Hobbs.
Killing must feel good to God, too. He does it all the time.
Whether his ability to enjoy killing was in his nature and brought to the surface by Hannibal, or was solely a result of Hannibal's influence, is debatable. But either way, the first catalyst for Will's moral decline was not a result of himself, but of Hannibal rearranging his thoughts. Will did not have agency in his perception of his actions. This dance between them continues throughout the season, all with the goal of Will becoming like Hannibal. As his mental state declines, Hannibal encourages it, going as far as to knowingly withhold the knowledge that Will has encephalitis that is altering his perception of reality. He frames Will for many of the murders in the show and for killing Abigail Hobbs, saying that he had dissociated and become Garrett Jacob Hobbs. Hannibal's framing of Will is successful, and he is thrown into the Baltimore State Hospital for the criminally insane. He's no longer afflicted with encephalitis, and he knows he's not a murderer. But by this point, Will is irrevocably changed. 3. Character is torn between the truth and the lie. At his time in the hospital for the criminally insane, Will plots against Hannibal, aiming to clear his name and get revenge. When Hannibal kills Beverly Katz, who is helping Will to investigate Hannibal from the outside, he sends a killer to murder Hannibal. Here, Will is fully in his right mind, but Hannibal's manipulations have transformed him into someone who can kill. This is where it gets complicated, if it wasn't already. Will's actions were influenced by Hannibal and Hannibal's desire to turn him into a killer, but they were ultimately his own. The realization of Will's desire to kill Hannibal sends him down another downward spiral. He admits to wishing he had shot someone so he could relive how he felt when he killed Hobbs, or when he thought he had killed Hannibal. Hannibal still encourages Will's moral decline, convincing him that he should follow his natural instinct. To appease Hannibal and to convince him that Will doesn't still want revenge, Will kills Randall Tyr, leaving his body on Hannibal's dining room table as a gift. He admits he felt powerful killing Randall Tyr. He then helps Hannibal mutilate Tyr's body and leave it for the FBI. And at this point, we are left wondering how much Will is tricking Hannibal and how much he enjoys what he's doing. Either way, these events have an extreme effect on Will's psyche. He has a dream in which the Wendigo, representing Hannibal, watches on as Will is birthed from the Raven Stag, representing his inner darkness, seeming to imply that Will is growing ever closer to true moral corruption. This is further embodied in his growing sympathy for Hannibal Lecter. Towards the end of Season 2, Will has a fantasy of slitting Hannibal's throat and feeding him to pigs. When he has an opportunity for this exact fantasy to come to life, he instead chooses to save Hannibal, abandoning his plan for revenge. By the Season 2 finale, Will is playing both Hannibal and the FBI, he himself unsure whose side he's going to take. Hannibal figured out Will's betrayal before he could make a decision, and runs off on his own, disemboweling Will and killing Abigail Hobbs, their surrogate daughter.
I let you know me. See me. I gave you a rare gift. But you didn't want it.
Didn't I?
Even after all this, Will is determined to chase after Hannibal and forgives him for what he did to him and Abigail. His psyche and desires were shaped by Hannibal Lecter, and Will knows he cannot live without him.
I forgive you.
4. Character fully embraces the lie. Moral failure. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to skip forward to the series finale. Will and Hannibal team up to kill Francis Dollarhide in a scene that is gruesome, horrifying, and beautiful at the same time. When he's dead, Will stumbles into Hannibal's arms, where Hannibal says,
See, this is all I ever wanted for you, Will. For both of us.
This C is a callback to the words of Garrett Jacob Hobbs, the words that, once manipulated by Hannibal, catalyzed Will's fall.
It's beautiful.
Oh, the dawn, a blood-red setting sun.
5. Aftermath. This part is a little more ambiguous, seeing as the series was left unfinished, but in the final scene after the credits, Bedelia sits at a table set for 3, with a large piece of meat at the table. The camera pans down, and it's revealed that her leg is missing. Presumably, Hannibal and Will have run off together, and are about to sit down to a meal of human leg. Will has accepted the lie, allowing himself to, in essence, become Hannibal Lecter. Obviously, the end of Hannibal poses some ambiguity. Do I believe that Will completed his corruption arc when he and Hannibal killed Francis Dollarhide? Yes. So what's with the bit about Will throwing the two of them off the cliff? I think that was the last bit of Will's conscience. He had been changed irrevocably, and there was no hiding from it anymore. He knows the old him wouldn't be able to live with himself, but he can't live without Hannibal. Rather than make that choice, he threw the two of them off the cliff. But of course, they survived the cliff jump in all their Sherlockian glory and presumably run off together. Hannigram for the win. To bring this back around to the original point of the essay, ultimately, Dany's reaction to her trauma is explained away by her inner nature, the idea that because she is a Targaryen, she was always destined to go mad. But with Will, his reaction to outside influence is not only a result of his own nature, but also a conscious choice. His dependency and emotional bond with Hannibal drive him to abandon his principles, whether that be out of vengeance or out of love. Daenerys' arc is so inherently unsatisfying because she didn't make that choice to fall. Her decline wasn't a result of her own machinations. It was madness, it was genetics, it was reactionary. Will Graham, while no doubt traumatized and pushed towards moral decay by outside forces, still held agency over his choices in the end. He may not have begun with agency, but that final push to his fall was a result of his own actions, of sound mind and body. Will changed due to his relationship with Hannibal Lecter, but he made the choice to destroy himself. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little analysis video. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to Colorado College Productions to see more video essays like this one in the future. This video was inspired by a video by Savage Books entitled Writing Stories of Corruption and Madness. K.M. Weiland's article, Learn 5 Types of Character Arc at a Glance, The 3 Negative Arcs, Part 2 of 2, was very helpful in understanding the traditional corruption arc. I borrowed the definition of character agency used in this video from Chuck Wendig's article, Just What the Humping Heck is Character Agency Anyway? Links to these are in the description below. And finally, this video was written, narrated, and edited by me, Davy Rey Stoces.